Hey guys, it's Cameron. Welcome back to Around the World with Cameron. You know what is, in my opinion, one of the most overrated cities on the planet? Paris. But don't get me wrong, I don't think it's necessarily a bad city. I actually had the rare opportunity to visit Paris 3 years ago, and I actually loved it. It's a very nice city with a lot to do, a lot of history, and a lot of good coffee. So I figured I could make a whole video about Paris. While the topic of reasons I believe Paris is overrated as a city can be a topic for a future video, I thought we could focus on some of the good things about Paris for now. And there are many good things about Paris despite the bad. You may have clicked on this video wondering what there is to do in Paris. Well, you have come to the right place, as I have compiled a list of the top 10 things to do in Paris. Now for the record, this is not a list ranking from worst to best, this is just in the order I want to talk about. And this list is based on both tourism research, statistics, and personal experience. Everyone has their own preferences of what they want to do here, so I would use this video not to tell you what you should be doing in the city, but rather as a beginner guide to form more ideas of what you want to do on your visit to Paris. So grab your passport, your French-English dictionary, your thirst for coffee, and let's get started. Number 10. Explore the various historic architecture. The city of Paris has a lot of history, and the city has done a really good job in preserving some of the oldest buildings they have. Such buildings include the Notre Dame Cathedral of Paris, which unfortunately most of the cathedral is not open to tourists due to a fire in 2019. However, they have opened the Parvis and the crypt to the public, although the towers and treasures are not open to the public as of this video's release. And there's also the Arc de Triomphe de l'Étoile, also called the Arc de Triomphe for short, and the Arc of Triumph in English, which was built in 1806 shortly after the French Revolution to celebrate the military achievements of the French armed forces. Plus, when you're walking out in the streets of Paris, there's so many buildings that are well over 100 years old, and some are that are well over 500 years old. The city has a lot of history preserved within its walls, and it's worth it to check them out on your visit to Paris. Number 9. The Observation Deck. Now there are many observation decks in Paris, and they're all great to check out to experience good aerial views of the city. But there is one observation deck I recommend the most, and that is the observation deck on the 56th floor of Montparnasse Tower. I've been to this observation deck and it's gorgeous. The tower has amazing aerial views of the city. You can see the Eiffel Tower, Arc de Triomphe, Champs-Élysées, and other parts of the city, and they can make great Instagram pictures as well. There's also a small souvenir shop up there as well. Paris is an amazing city to see from high up, and I recommend you do this during your visit. Number 8. Explore the catacombs. If you're really into the macabre side of history, this is definitely something you should do. The catacombs of Paris, known natively as Les Catacombes de Paris, are underground ossuaries that contain the remains of more than 6 million people. Personally, I haven't seen the catacombs, but I would love to. And if you want to see it, they offer tours from Tuesday to Saturday for around 27 to 29 euros per person, and around 5 euros per person who is under 18. So keep that in mind when planning your visit. Although a couple words of caution before you visit this place. Before you get in the catacombs, be wary of the smells. It won't smell great down there. One tourist who went down there described it as smelling, quote, a combination of sewage and decomposition. So if you're sensitive to smells like that, this may not be an ideal place for you. Also, be sure to stick with a tour group at all times. Don't wander down there by yourself. Not to entice you or anything, but there are actually many more tunnels in the catacombs down there that haven't been explored or that haven't been open to the public. And for good reason. Many of the tunnels down there that aren't open to the public are considered too narrow, too flooded, or just too unstable for tourism. In fact, there are people who have ventured into the catacombs and have never made it out. Just keep those in mind when visiting the catacombs, but as long as you take full advantage of the buddy system and maybe pack some extra nose plugs, you should be fine. Number 7. Palace of Versailles. The Palace of Versailles is the former residence of the old French royal family located in Versailles, just a little ways outside of Paris. Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were some of the last residents of the palace before the French Revolution. Today, it is a museum dedicated to the history of the French royal family and French history in general. I had the fortune of seeing the Palace of Versailles when I visited Paris, and it's definitely worth seeing. Honestly, the style of the Palace of Versailles, I actually wouldn't mind designing my house to look like this. And even the gardens outside the palace. There is a lot of garden space outside with so many flowers, ponds, and even well-grown and trimmed hedges that could make great family photos. It's all really gorgeous and it's worth checking out. Number 6. Visit the Eiffel Tower. While not as historic as some of the other buildings in Paris, there's still a lot of history and significance associated with the Eiffel Tower. In fact, I bet the first thing that you think of when you think of Paris is the Eiffel Tower. It's considered internationally as a symbol of Paris and is widely revered in French culture. It was built in 1889 and was originally supposed to be demolished after 20 years. But in 2022, they have kept it up and alive, and millions of tourists still visit the Eiffel Tower every year. Fun fact, the summit of the Eiffel Tower has been closed to the public for some time until they opened it back up for tourists in July of 2020. Although ticket sales to this part of the tower are limited, so if you want to visit this part of the Eiffel Tower, I would latch on this ticket as soon as possible if there is any availability. And according to their website, toureiffel.paris, tickets are 27 euros each for adults among other prices. So I would keep that in mind if you want to order tickets. And also not to mention the lights at night, lovely. Number 5, Musée Louvre. Now this is a museum worth visiting. There's a reason why Musée Louvre, or the Louvre Museum in English, is recognized as one of the biggest and best museums in Europe and the world. Not only does it have the gorgeous glass pyramid, which believe it or not is the entrance to the museum, it has so much space filled with all kinds of exhibits. I remember visiting the Musée Louvre when I was in Paris, and it was quite an amazing experience. I remember really loving their Ancient Egypt exhibit because it was really interesting to be able to see the actual ancient Egyptian relics they managed to extradite from Egypt to Paris for us to see. And yes, Leonardo da Vinci's famous Mona Lisa original painting is located in this museum, as well as many of his other original artworks. Honestly, I can't say seeing the original Mona Lisa is worth it. For one, it's very small and it's covered with glass, for obvious reasons. And when I was there, I could see it from a distance in a large room, but there was such a large crowd of people trying to see it, and I was just like, yeah, this is totally not worth it, and moved on. But the entire museum itself is worth a visit, and the admission prices aren't bad either. According to their website louvre.fr, it is 17 euros if you order online and 15 euros if you order on site. And if you are under 18 years old or a citizen of a country in the European Economic Area that is under 26 years old, admission is actually free. And if you ask me, even for the price, this is worth it. Number 4. Shop at Champs-Élysées. If you're a shopaholic like myself, Champs-Élysées is easily the #1 shopping street in Paris. Not only are there a lot of designer stores on the street like Louis Vuitton, there's also a lot of major souvenir shops on this street in case you want to get a little something for someone when you get back home. And on top of that, it is a great street for Instagram pictures, and the street itself does branch off the roundabout around the Arc de Triomphe, so all the more reason to visit this street, at least for a good picture. Number 3. Take a river tour through the Seine. Now, this is just lovely. I remember I did the cruise at night tour along the Seine, and it was amazing. Now, there is something you should know before you go on a night cruise. I didn't realize this until I actually experienced it, but Paris is on a much higher latitude than many would believe. It was also summer when I visited there, so the sun didn't really set until well after 10 in the evening. So that part was kind of a bummer, as the cruise at night tour was more like a cruise at late afternoon into sunset tour, and the sun didn't even start to set until we docked. So yeah, just keep that in mind when scheduling a time to do this. But it was still a very nice experience. I got to see so much of the city. At the location where we docked, the Eiffel Tower was so close, and it was amazing to see it so close to me. And also, when we did dock, they turned the lights of the Eiffel Tower on, so that was lovely to see. Although cruising by Notre Dame was very sad, because this was 2 months after much of the cathedral burned down, so I just had to see the 2 towers in the front and a bunch of scaffold in the back. But the river tour definitely was amazing, and I recommend doing this on any part of the day, really. Number 2. Visit local cafes. Cafes in Paris are definitely worth visiting. There are hundreds of cafes to choose from in the city, and some of the cafes have been in business in Paris for centuries. The oldest known cafe in Paris that's been in business is Le Procope, which was established back in 1686. I love Parisian cafes, and I love how many of them create such relaxing atmospheres. My personal favorite cafe that I visited was Café Le Vauban, which is located on the corner of Avenue de Breteuil, right next to the tomb of Napoleon Bonaparte. Plus, I just love how the French make their coffee, and the coffee in Paris is to die for. Plus, having a cup of coffee while enjoying the view of Paris is such a sweet treat. So whenever you arrive in Paris, definitely try a nearby cafe, especially if you're arriving in Paris early in the morning. Alright, before we get to number 1, be sure to give this video a like as it could help with YouTube's algorithm, and be sure to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell to be notified whenever I post a new video. And if you're on your phone, be sure to go into your settings and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on new videos. Alright, on to number 1. Number 1, visit the gardens of the city. The gardens in Paris are just gorgeous. There's really no words to describe how beautiful the gardens in Paris are. There are so many gardens in Paris, and they're all beautiful in their own way. Some of the favorite gardens to visit from various tourists include Le Jardin de Luxembourg, Le Jardin de Trocadero, and Le Jardin des Plantes, which is France's main botanical garden. A stroll in a Parisian garden is definitely a must on your visit to Paris, hence why it is number 1 on this list. And that is it for the top 10 things to do in Paris. Do you agree with this list? Let me know in the comments below. Was there something you can do in Paris that I missed? Let me know in the comments below. And honestly, just comment anyway. I love hearing feedback from you guys on these videos. And be sure to give this video a like as it could help with YouTube's algorithm. And be sure to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell to be notified whenever I post a new video. And if you're on your phone, be sure to go into your settings and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on new videos. This is Cameron, and thanks for watching.